With Nvidia's, let's be honest, disastrous launch, are we witnessing the beginning of the end for Nvidia as a gaming company? I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but with 90% of their revenue now coming from AI, it's difficult to ignore the possibility that the gaming side of the company is suffering as a result. It's hard to believe they could fumble this badly unless something fundamental has shifted in their culture and priorities. So, well, this is an interesting question, isn't it, Alex? And indeed, your eight-faced bottom. um, because, obviously Blackwell's come out. We've got the 5090, which is, a decent chunk better than a 4090, but costs a lot more. And then no 4090 equivalent. And then everything else is essentially, as you called it in your CES coverage, almost like a refresh of the super refresh of the 40 series. And it's culminated in the 5070, which is basically, let's say it like it is. It's a 4070 super, give or take. And the concept that there's any take at all is remarkable. A 4070 super, give or take, with a price cut and DLSS 4. The hardware side of things does seem to be not as robust as previous launches, let's put it that way. Do you think we are witnessing the beginning of the end of Nvidia as a gaming company? My personal view on this is nobody really knows whether this AI thing is sustainable going forward, whether Nvidia will continue to have this gigantic lead, and it still makes gigantic amounts of money from gaming. So I don't think it is the beginning of the end, but I certainly am concerned about Blackwell.
Yeah, I'm concerned about Blackwell too. I also think if the 5070 is the signs of what we should expect from a 5060 and 5060 Ti, well then what presumably AMD is going to respond with in those segments, they'll have way more memory or something like that and be just as good in a lot of ways, if not better, and then be cheaper, then, that's really bad actually for NVIDIA. And I think the hardware side this time around is the big letdown. Software side, though, they only show evidence of them wanting to push everything forward. So I don't think so. I also think I don't know Jensen at all. I don't know the man. But I think, he's probably got a lot of his pride invested into the GPU market, which is where the company got its start. And I think giving that up, that position of pride and prestige over time, probably doesn't make too much sense. I think they'd always want to be dominant. So I don't think so, but I definitely do not like the current hardware direction that Blackwell's gone in for price and essentially what you get versus the previous generation. I don't think it is up to NVIDIA's own standards, actually. So there's that.
Yeah, the 5070, I can't help but think, right? If it was a $499 product and you could buy it for $499, I think actually it would have received, and no comparisons with 4090 performance. This is one of the biggest marketing missteps I think I've ever seen. I think it would have actually received very good reviews, right?
Right.
I think it would have, you'd have had clear price differentiation against the 4070 and the 4070 Super. The performance regressions against 4070 Super would be an irrelevance, really, since they're relatively slight, and it would be $100 cheaper. $500 for a 12 gig GPU. Well, okay, it's not optimal, but it's okay. I think the package would have been just much better overall. So I'm wondering well, it's also less efficient than the 4070 Super in some regards. So, there are hardware issues there for sure. I just think maybe it's more of a pricing and marketing issue for the 5070. But yeah, Oliver, what do you think?
I don't really think that they're going to end their presence as a gaming company. If you look at gaming revenue over time, it's steady. It's just that their data center revenue has gone from 50% or so of their total revenue like 3 years ago to 90% now, roughly speaking, as this user puts it. Well, gaming revenue is flat, essentially. I do think their development and manufacturing priorities are probably oriented more around these AI chips, which have colossally high margins. But
Yeah.
I think that'll continue to be the case in the future, but I don't think that that's the end of their gaming focus by any means. I just think that in terms of their overall priorities, it's probably shifted, at least for the time being, towards those AI chips. I don't think that means the end of their gaming line here, but I do think it marks a shift in priorities for the company.
Yeah, I think ultimately, a good business is a diversified business. You want to be dominant in several markets, not just one. And, basically there's an ebb and flow to these markets. And, the AI side of things might not always be commanding so much of the revenue. You've got to stay on top in all areas. I would be surprised to see, things change that badly. But at the same time, I take on board what Alex is saying. The 4060 wasn't great. 4060 Ti wasn't great. 5070, now we're seeing it creep into the 70 class products. The 5070, wasn't great. Yeah, it's a bit worrying.